My name is Philip Jabour. I'm the Associate Vice President and University Architect at Southern Methodist University. I oversee the Office of Planning, Design, and Construction. Our office focuses on all construction for the university's 3 campuses. We have a campus in Dallas, Texas, a small campus in Plano, Texas, about 20 miles from the main campus. Then we have a campus in Taos, New Mexico. We handle all construction for the university, so everything from small renovations to the major capital projects, a current $150 million capital project that we have underway. Currently we have about 125 active projects, all of which total about $350 million, and that's just active, so that doesn't include those projects that are still in warranty or post-warranty and closeout. In the next 24 months, we have to complete about $400 million in construction. For us, it was the budgeting piece. It wasn't the project documentation piece, the archival pieces. We had a real issue with consolidating information that was in a disparate situation. We needed to consolidate it if we were going to be one solid department organization. So that's what led to that. And we investigated a number of companies. We took about 12 months to look at other companies out there, meeting with them, testing them, visiting other users, getting their feedback and experience, and we kept always coming back to eBuilder. And it was a point where we were able to finally say, we need to do something about it. So I pushed that we needed to look for some 21st century method of managing our budgets, and that's really what was the impetus. What we discovered is there was a real appreciation from eBuilder of being an owner's representative software, as opposed to some others that had evolved from the construction side or architectural side. We're project management. We provide project management services. We're owner's reps, and we really needed a software that could address that. And that's ultimately where we ended up. And finally, after 12 months of testing and evaluating, we were able to implement eBuilder. The first piece of it for us, our first phase of implementation, about 18 months ago. But what it forces you to do is to retool your own processes, which is a good thing, because the purpose of us purchasing eBuilder was to become more efficient, to become more streamlined, to not have to go back and ask for more staff, which I knew I was not going to get. And so we needed to take the implementation a lot slower, and that implementation had to focus on the cost management piece of it, because that was the challenge that we were having. We could not answer questions to senior administrators of truly what were we spending? What was our capital spend for the last 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, unless somebody did an exhaustive review of it by Excel spreadsheets, and a lot of times that information was in somebody's head, and when they left, so did that information. So we're using the budgeting piece. The funding piece we don't use, because our funding sources don't come from multiple locations. Because we're a private institution, it's either donor funded, bond funded, or some operating or reserve account internal, or some small combination. But it's not as complex as public institutions, or where we have to break it down depending upon where the funding comes from. So we're heavily using the cost model piece, the budget piece of it. And we've actually implemented and integrated into our funding process. Our department doesn't have funds. We don't have a pot of money that we spend from. We have to actually get approval for every project, and there's an internal process that's in place, and once that approval's in place, we move forward on that process. So we use the budget projecting and the commitment piece, and it also helps us in our ability to close out projects. So when the actuals and the commitments meet and we're done with the project, we can begin to use that as part of our closeout. So that's really where we are right now. It has forced us to retool our processes. And in higher education, unlike the corporate world, the higher education side is extremely cumbersome. There are layers and layers of bureaucracy and committees and decision makers. Whereas on the corporate side, one project manager makes a decision, we move forward. Here's your budget, here's your project, here's when you got to be done. I look at it from a qualitative standpoint. It frees up manpower and allows us to be more, have the ability to expand and contract depending upon the market, depending upon the conditions, whereas in the past, too many things were siloed. And that's very common in higher education. Whereas one person was doing budgeting and cost modeling and all of that, now across the board, everybody has an ability to be a part of that. And so I expand that. So it helps in our business continuity plan, it helps to bring continued value. It has We never expected it to demonstrate that we saved on change orders, because there's still subjectivity to that. There's still a face-to-face discussion that has to occur, a challenge. But what it has done is allowed us to put everything in one location. And when somebody says, well, how many projects are we running at this time, and what is the current dollar value? That's just simplified, but pushing a button and there it is. Whereas in the past, we had no clue. We had no way of knowing what we were putting, and we are now able to quantify the value of our assets and the improvement of those assets by using the system and having it in one central location. It's been positive. Like in any relationship, any partnership, there are strengths and weaknesses, there are pros and cons, but I think what we've found is that there's been positive response and that we're seeing what we're saying is being heard. And I think you're probably hearing the same things from other folks, and that's why we see the enhancements, that's why we start to see the changes.